Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Business Ben Show, your ultimate destination for all things personal finance, investment, and financial empowerment. As the title suggests, my name is Ben and today we're going to be exploring another essential topic of finance, the budget. Yes, the budget. The dreaded spreadsheets, the thing that your parents and your grandparents tell you should do, and where the phrase, "don't spend it all in one place," came from. But enough joking aside, although it may seem daunting and pretty boring, today we're going to be diving into the fundamentals of creating and sticking to a budget while still keeping it fun and light. Learning how to create and stick to a budget is an essential part for building a strong financial foundation, which will ultimately help you achieve your financial goals and help you way down the line. If you're a younger person who's just looking to get started, or if you're someone who's looking to make their financial management a little bit better, this is the video for you. Quick disclaimer before we start, I am not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. I am just some stranger on the internet that is talking about what works for me personally and is purely for entertainment purposes. If you would like to make informed financial decisions, I would highly recommend and encourage you seek out your own personal financial advisor for that kind of advice. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's dive into it. Before we get into the steps of how to create a budget, let's talk about why a budget is essential. Budgeting allows you to have control over your finances and make informed decisions and purchases. It provides you a clear image of your income and expenses, enabling you to prioritize certain spending to avoid unnecessary debt and working towards your financial goals, while also seeing where you can have some wiggle room for a little bit of fun. Just because budgeting helps your wallet doesn't mean it has to be the end of all fun. By budgeting, you are taking charge of your finances and setting yourself up for a seriously strong financial future. Now, let's walk through some of the steps that have helped me create a budget and will hopefully help inform you on how you can create your own. Step 1. Determine your income. You want to start out by calculating your monthly income. This includes your salary, any side hustles you may have, or any other regular sources of income. Knowing how much money is coming in every month is an essential part of creating a realistic budget for yourself. Keep in mind though, creating a monthly income does not include any extra cash you find along the way. This includes things like birthday cards, extra bonuses, or finding that $20 of cash you forgot was in your winter jacket. You want to make sure that you only plan for what you are sure you are going to make. Moving on, step 2, track your expenses. Take a thorough and honest look at your expenses over the past few months. Categorize them into different groups such as housing, transportation, groceries, entertainment, and any other relevant categories that may pertain to you. This exercise will help you to identify different areas of specific spending that you might be able to cut back and save on. Let me give you a personal example. Once a year, usually at the beginning of the summer, I like to export a year's worth of credit card spending into an Excel sheet. Then I sort that sheet by category like I just mentioned, creating categories like grocery spending, going out to eat, gas, and so on. I then go down that list and I mark the purchases that, when looking back, may not have been necessary. This is the part where you need to be critical of your spending in an honest way. After that, I add up the total of all of that unnecessary spending, and then I use that money to see how much I could have saved throughout the year. I then find the category that has the most unnecessary spending, and then I think of creative ways to cut back. Let me give you an example. Let's just say that your biggest area of expense is on clothing. A good way to cut back is to buy secondhand at a thrift store or online. Not only is that good for the environment, but you can have some serious savings by buying used clothes that are a fraction of the price of what the big box stores are selling it as. Once you've done all of that, now it's time to move on to step 3. Setting your financial goals. Look towards that financial future I keep talking about. This next step is to set both short and long-term financial goals. These goals could be paying off debt, saving for a down payment on a house, or building an emergency fund. Having clear goals will guide your budgeting decisions, as well as keep you motivated. As a personal example, I budgeted in with my level of income to put aside $200 a month. 100 of those dollars is going into a Roth IRA retirement account, and the other $100 is going into an investment savings account that I'm using to save up for my first property. But those two things are two separate videos all on their own, so we'll get to those another time. Moving on. Now we get to step 4, allocating your income. Divide your income into different categories based on your expenses and your financial goals. Start with the essentials like housing, food, gas, etc. Then allocate some money towards saving and investment. And lastly, set aside some money for some discretionary spending. It's very important to do it in that order. That way, your living expenses are covered, you have some money put aside, and then you can spend on yourself. Unfortunately, in this step, you're gonna have to put yourself last. But by doing so, you're leaving yourself open for a lot more savings that you can spend on yourself. It's important to strike a balance between meeting your needs, saving for your future, and still having a little bit of fun. As a good rule of thumb, I like to use the 50-30-20 rule. Let me explain. The 50-30-20 rule states that 50% of your income should go towards your necessities, that is groceries, rent, etc. 30% of your income should go towards saving and investing, and then 20% should go to whatever else you want to spend it on. This method allows for good budgeting, good saving, and a little extra for you. Budgeting doesn't have to be selfless. It's okay to spend a little bit of what you make. There's absolutely no harm in that. It's just important that we put aside some money for saving and for your future as well. Now we're moving on to step 5, monitor and adjust. Although having a little self-spending is okay, it is important that you track your expenses regardless. You then need to take those expenses and compare it to your budget. This comparison will help you stay on track and make adjustments as needed. Consider using a budgeting app or a spreadsheet to make it more simple for you. Personally, I like to use spreadsheets because that gives me full control over the whole situation, as well as cutting out some unnecessary features that I've found some apps have. Sometimes those features would confuse me. However, if using a budgeting app seems more up your alley, I would highly recommend the Mint app by Intuit. It's the app that I used before I switched over to entirely spreadsheets. It has a great track record and a bunch of great reviews. As you're analyzing, if you find that you're overspending in one category or another, think of creative ways to cut back, like the clothing example I gave. Remember, budgeting is a dynamic process. It may take a few months to get it on track and make sure it fits for you. There's no harm in giving it a little wiggle room at first. You want to make sure that you fine-tune your budgeting to fit your lifestyle and to fit your needs. Now that we've gone over how to create a budget, let's talk about the thing that is arguably more important, sticking to it. Creating your budget is a good first step, but if you don't stick to it, it's not really worth much. To help you out with that, here are 5 personal tips that I have used to help me stay on track with my budget. Tip 1, be realistic. Ensure that your budget is realistic and aligned with your lifestyle. Ultimately, you're going to need to cut back on some discretionary spending, and it may change things for a little bit, but cutting it out entirely may not be healthy for you, and that's okay. You want to find a sustainable balance that works for you, while still trying your best to cut back on your spending. Tip number 2, prioritize saving and debt repayment. Make saving and debt repayment a priority. You can make it a priority by allocating some of your income specifically to meet those goals. Think of the 50-30-20 rule. Consider automating some of these contributions so that it's consistent and you don't forget about it. Just remember, whatever your financial goals are, it's a lot harder to reach if you have $0 in your savings account and a mountain of debt in front of you. Tip number 3, track your expenses regularly. Keep a record of all of your expenses and make sure to track them regularly. This will help you identify areas that you may be overspending and also will help you to make necessary adjustments to meet your financial goals. To help you keep track, I would recommend using my personal method, which is the 20-minute treat method. Let me explain. The 20-minute treat method is to take 20 minutes every single week at the same time every week to look only at tracking your expenses. Just take 20 minutes, set a timer, put your phone on Do Not Disturb and screen facing down, and make sure to prioritize this time for only analyzing your expenses. That way you can see if you're on track to meet your financial goals and also find little spending discrepancies that you can cut out. Then once that 20-minute timer has gone off, treat yourself. Get a nice coffee from Starbucks or a candy bar or something like that, as long as it aligns with your budgeting and your goals. That way you're not only being rewarded for keeping track of your finances, but you're also keeping consistency, which is key. Moving on, let's get to tip number 4. Planning for unexpected expenses. Set aside some money each and every month for those unexpected expenses or for some emergency. This will prevent you from derailing your entire budget when those inevitable unexpected expenses come up. This could also be called an emergency fund. Life happens and your finances don't want to be caught in the middle of it. So putting aside just a little bit of money every month to create this emergency fund will definitely help you out. An emergency fund is an entirely different video in and of itself that I will cover at a later date, but let me just give you some quick advice while we're here. If you want to research an emergency fund right now before I make that video, please go ahead and do so. I highly encourage it. However, a lot of the times it's generally thought that an emergency fund can cover anywhere from 3 to 6 months of your expenses. However, when you're a bit younger, that can seem a bit daunting, but don't worry. That number is meant for the average American, which is meant for a car payment, a house payment, or childcare expenses. So when you're on the younger side and still have some support systems in place, this fund can be a little bit lower on the priority list. Not off the priority list, but just a little bit lower. Just try and set aside a little bit of money here and there consistently just to stay on top of it, because inevitably something crazy will happen and your financial future will thank you. Tip number 5, reward yourself. Like I mentioned in the 20-minute treat example, giving yourself a reward can really help you to stay motivated. Celebrate milestones like paying off a certain amount of debt or reaching a certain savings goal, but just make sure that this reward that you have for yourself is still in line with your budget. The last thing you want to do is celebrate saving a lot of money just to blow it all in one night of celebrating. You want to make sure to treat yourself, but in moderation and in a way that aligns with your budget. And with those 5 tips, you're in a pretty good state to continue that budgeting. So there you have it. That is Business Ben's Budgeting 101. Remember, budgeting is a powerful tool that empowers you to take control over your own finances. If you found this video helpful, even a little bit, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We have a bunch of videos coming out soon with a lot of great insights, so be sure to hit that bell notification to stay on top of it all. If you guys have any comments or questions or even suggestions on how to move forward, be sure to leave them down in the comment section below. It really helps out that YouTube algorithm and really helps to boost the channel to get it to as many people as we can. Remember, this channel is all about learning, growing, and thriving together on our path towards financial success. You got this.